Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. And in the hot seats tonight, we've got Chuck Alvarez, Steve Feigenbaum back on SOT after a couple months, and Ken Golden. What's up, gentlemen?
Greetings.
Hey, ready to talk some Krautrock tonight?
Yes, I am.
We're in the crowd seat tonight.
We're in the crowd seat tonight.
The crowd seat. Yep.
I'm
Nice.
going to learn a little bit tonight, I think. I'm always up for learning a little bit. So what we're going to be talking about here, folks, is our 5 favorite Krautrock albums of all time, our top 5. Before we kind of dive into our picks, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about Krautrock in general. Ken, I don't know if you want to kind of kickstart that little discussion first before we start doing the listy thing.
Sure. I mean, Steve and I had talked about this a bit, and Krautrock takes on, I think, different meanings to different people. For some people, the most basic thing is that it's German rock.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not Krautrock. I mean, that's Krautrock. It has a lot of different interpretations. And it could get kind of confusing. It was a term that was coined in the very early 70s. The German music scene was kind of exploding.
It was coined by the British press.
Yeah, and like Melody Maker supposedly attributed. And the scene kind of came out. There was a lot of tumult going on in Germany in the early 70s. There was a lot of student unrest and rebellion, and Krautrock, to me, it kind of embodies this exploratory underground sound. Kind of the music. Again, this is my interpretation. So Steve and Chuck and yourself may have a slightly different one. It's clearly that drugs were a heavy influence on the sound. It's very psychedelic. Mm-hmm. It's very guitar driven, but keyboards are definitely a factor. It's not a heavy synthesizer sound. That was developed later on as sort of a subgenre of Krautrock. Whereas albums like later Tangerine Dream or Klaus Schulze albums, that's a separate category. And I think, Steve, we agree that we're not going to talk about that, right?
We both agree that while we both have great love for the Berlin scene electronics, meaning Tangerine Dream, Klaus Schulze, Ashra Temple, actually Manuel Gotching, and related spacey things that we wanted to it's fine if you guys want to pull something, but there's so much that we decided that for our choices, we were going to limit it to guitar and drums bands, plus other stuff. But
yeah, early Tangerine Dream.
I mean,
electronic meditation. When they were a band, they were a trio. With guitar and that's Krautrock. On the other hand, a later album like White Eagle or something like that, it's like this heavy sequence synthesizer sound. That's something else. It's fine.
It's great, but we for the purposes of this show, we decided not to choose that.
Yeah.
And maybe in the hopes that there'll be a future show about 70s German electronic music or floaty music or space music.
For other people, for some people, bands like Cluster, Neu, Harmonia, those are for many people, are very important Krautrock bands. That seems to have, for me, from my perspective, those are bands that are more focused on rhythm. They're very experimental and sometimes industrial sounding. Mm-hmm. Also, there seems that people use space rock and Krautrock interchangeably. When we did the space rock show, I kind of veered away from some of the stuff we're talking about tonight. But they kind of we're talking semantics in some ways.
So sometimes, Ken, some people mention bands like Eloy or Jane in this kind of thing, which to me doesn't quite seem like it belongs.
Those are not Krautrock bands to me.
They were more symphonic.
Yeah, symphonic. They have some more in the symphonic direction. and also they're prog rock bands. You know, they were.
They're German
very
prog rock bands.
German.
But they're prog rock
And,
bands.
yeah, and if you ever want to do a German prog rock show, man, it'll be amazing. You know, all these bands we talk about all the time, like Eloy, you know, Jane, whatever, great bands, Grobschnitt, great bands. So, but it's like, you know, like Grobschnitt to me is not a krautrock band. They're a German prog rock band. It's very composed, you know, whereas a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight is like guys dropping acid, going into the studio and cutting it out
and wailing on somebody else's dime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's how I perceive it. Your mileage may vary, as they say. So there's no, I don't think there's any wrong answers. And if you go on Wikipedia, I think you'll get really confused. So
yeah, no doubt.
Well, you see that Stockenhausen, he's what's very much an influence on a lot of members, which being that he was also German as well, influenced a lot of them. Frank Zappa via Lumpy Gravy is another album that predates krautrock. You know, Miles Davis, you know, at a time predated it, and also Ornette Coleman. You know, the trappings of Ornette Coleman during the late '60s had a lot of stuff that dealt with things that might have influenced the krautrock scene.
One other thing also that I was thinking about is that also the U.S. military had a very strong presence in Germany at the time, and I think that a lot of those good, you know, a lot of the American bands, some of the West Coast psychedelic bands would have it. A lot of some of the heavier bands from the U.S. were, I think, sort of that kind of migrated, the sound kind of migrated and became an influence. So, you know.
Certainly the West Coast, I would agree, certainly the West Coast sound because of the servicemen and whatever. The other thing that I think is really interesting about the krautrock scene in Germany in general in that time, I mean, I don't think that there's any other underground music scene of the 70s that has as much ties, I don't want to draw too strong because the FBI may be listening, but has ties with terrorist organizations. I mean, you know, there is definitely a line between some of the krautrock bands and the Bader Meinhof group or things like that. Something, you know, there's no lines drawn between Genesis and the IRA, but you know. But there is
maybe from the IRA.
Maybe from the IRA. You know, but I mean, seriously, it's like I mean, not that these people were throwing bombs, but they were closer to the people throwing bombs than in any other scene. So it's edgier. It's really edgier. And
it's anti-establishment music.
Yes, and also as part of that, you know, and maybe this is a little bit of a history lesson for the younger viewers. You know, you had Germany, which after the war was partitioned, you know, and the Soviet Union got part of it, East Germany, and the Allies got West Germany, and the capital, Berlin, which was in East Germany, was divided in half. And so you had West Berlin, which was democratic and part of West Germany, but it was completely isolated from the rest of West Germany, except there was this barricaded road that, you know, that they could get supplies in and out. And, you know, when that first happened, that was, or not first, but, you know, there was the Berlin airlift where the USSR closed the roads and there were no supplies. And so they had to airlift some food to the West Germans, you know? And so, you know, you're in this city and there's this wall and that goes completely across your city. And, you know, on a bad day, you can walk by the wall and you hear someone from the East trying to get over to the West and getting machine gunned to death. And I think that it was very edgy. That's a very good, you know, that's a very good take on it. It's edgy politically, it's edgy musically. I think a lot of it, you know, not the entire scene, but certainly Krautrock and also the spacey music stuff is very removed from other aspects of, you know, 70s progressive rock. The other thing, and then the last thing about Krautrock that's very interesting is, of all the genres and countries and of progressive rock, the one that ended up having, you wouldn't have necessarily guessed this at the time, but the one that ended up having by far the most influence on of the music today of post-punk is Krautrock, you know? And that's a, you know, I mean, that doesn't necessarily speak to its quality, but it speaks to it's just an interesting thing that happened with the music we're discussing tonight. And, you know, it in some ways, you know, it's more influential to a larger audience via Marky Smith of the Fall singing I Am Damo Suzuki than it ever was when there was actually Can with Damo Suzuki.
Well, even, hey, listen, even look, Bowie was obviously
obviously, I mean,
even U2 was influenced. So you know, there's so many bands that were, you know, they cite the Krautrock bands, Noi and Can, and
and lots of others. Yes, so it's very interesting that happened, and it's kind of interesting that the edgiest scene is the one that it happened to.
Cool. That's a lot of good information.
Steve, please stop talking now. Okay.
No, that's it's all it's all essential stuff. Because I'm sure we're going to get a lot of people watching this who really aren't that well versed in Krautrock. So it's very essential info. Before we get started, though, Ken has been bugging me. He's got something he's been wanting to show me. Something.
Should we save it for after the show?
No. This is very important, Pete. In commemoration of your 75,000 subscribers and 30 million views, I wanted to honor you with this, if you'd like. It's a Magma belt buckle. And, you know, it really, if you'd like, it'll be my gift to you. And of course, the downside is that you'll have to get some leather and make a belt out of it, and you'll have to model it for us in the future.
Nice.
But
Ken, that's very kind of you. You know, I'm a really charitable guy, so I actually, Chuck, if you want, I'll give it to you.
We're gonna give it to Chuck. We'll be seeing it at a Goodwill in the Bronx.
I was gonna say, are we having like arm wrestling to determine who likes Magma less?
I love Magma.
Oh, you love Magma. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Steve, I understand you have something as well.
Yes, I do actually. So for Pete, I have a Magma ramen bowl. Very nice. And even more importantly, I have a package of Magma ramen. Mechanic Destructua ramen.
Nice.
Steve, I got to ask you, where in the world did you get that stuff from?
I got it from Cuneiform's main distributor is a company called Disc Union in Japan. I mean, my main distributor in Japan, and they are the main distributor for Magma. And I've met them, and there's a lady there who I'm friendly with, and she sent it.
Nice.
Well, I will say I love ramen, so I would eat that.
I would not. I would be.
Sorry, Ken, I won't wear the belt buckle.
I would not
eat ramen.
It would be so awesome, Pete, if there was a photograph of you wearing the belt with the Magma logo while you're eating Magma ramen out of the Magma bowl. That would be. I see that as an album cover in the making.
Imagine that, like a Magma T-shirt, Magma belt buckle,
Pete,
chopsticks, eating out of Magma bowl.
Yeah. Pete, actually, the best thing I've ever got from them is, do you at least know Magma well enough to know Magma Live? You play it and it goes, Hamatai? And I've got this little digital thing, and you push it and it goes, Hamatai? I'm a tight, I'm a tight, I'm a tight,
Over and over and over again.
over and over until the battery runs out.
Or you're patient.
Or your wife takes it from you. Yeah, I mean, one or the
Yeah,
other.
right. Give me that thing. Jesus.
Pete, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Pete.
Appreciate it. Appreciate
That's
it.
pretty great.
Couldn't do it without everybody on here and who watches. I mean, it's a pretty magical day, I think. And got to keep going, though. Got to keep going.
Absolutely.
So,
That's it.
all right, so let's get started with our Krautrock top 5 ranking. We're gonna go Chuck, Steve, Ken, myself. Chuck, Steve, Ken, myself. Round and round to number 1. So Chuck, what do you got coming in at number 5?
All right. What's that? I think I've mentioned this before. It's one of my favorite German bands. Well, everyone that I have listed over here are all my favorite albums. Although I don't think that this is technically their best album, but it's my favorite album by them. Guru's Heinten is my number 5.
Yep.
Guru, it's a lot of spacey guitar, crunchy guitars. You listen to the stuff and it, at times you think you're listening to like a Hendrix or something, and then all of a sudden it just goes off to the deep end, man. What's the lyrics? You listen to these guys singing over here, electric funk. All these songs are over 10 minutes long on here. So you're getting yourself like a real workout when you listen to this stuff. What's the meaning of the meaning? Bo Diddley and The Spaceship. All great stuff on here. 4 songs, man, all over 10 minutes long, man. Heinten from Guru is my number 5.
It's a great album.
Yep.
It's a fantastic album.
That that was bubbling up. That was bubbling under for me. That's on the list. So
well, a couple of these bands have a couple that are like, you could pick any of them, right? I mean, that's the thing.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
It's like Chuck said, I don't know if it's the best one. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's a very, I'm going to basically, Chuck, are you done? I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Okay. I have 5 and I'm not doing them in any order because I can't. And, it was very hard for me to choose these. But, so I'm just, and the first one I'm going to do, I can't hold up because I don't have it. It's by Guru. And it was something that there was a period where I was licensing materials from Radio Bremen in Germany. And I got a copy of them September 12th, 1971 in Bremen in a school gymnasium. And it's an amazing performance. It's the original, it's the same band as on Hinton. And I tried to get it out and I just couldn't make it happen. And it came out for a very short while, so you can get it, but it's not in print right now, called Live in Germany 71. It's nice. It's it's basically everything Chuck said, except it's 1 hour long and it's 3 songs, and each song is 20 minutes long. And they do the most insane version of Bo Diddley on there that you ever heard in your life. They do Der LSD March. And it's just, Ken posted on his Facebook page, he was playing UFO, and somebody posted like, drumming's not really that great. And it was like, Ken and I, this morning when we were talking about it, it's like, it's too over, he's too busy. And I said, they're all too busy. That's the fucking point.
Exactly.
It's like, that's Guru. It's like they're cream with their brains destroyed on LSD, and they're barely holding it together, and they're not playing the blues.
Yeah.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. So, that was hard, like I said, they were on my honorable mention, but like UFO and Hinton, at first it was like, oh no, it's got to be UFO. UFO's one. And I played Hinton and I said, Hinton is actually the better album. The first album, UFO, is extraordinary, but so is Hinton. And the thing was Hinton's maybe a little better production, a little tighter. just a little more focused. It's like,
None of them are good productions.
Oh no.
no. I mean, we're talking, you know, and that, you know,
It's hard to produce really, really wasted people.
yeah, you know, that's kind of, and you know, that's part of, I think in a way that's part of the krautrock sound, if
Mhm.
there
Oh,
is
yeah.
one. This sort of
yeah.
underground, you know, there was that band German Oak where the album was recorded in a bunker. You
Yeah.
know,
Wow.
I mean, literally recorded in a bunker. I mean, you know, and that's the sound. It's, you know, it's like, you know, it was like,
Reverberating.
yeah, it's like they set the microphones up like 30 feet away, you know, and, you know, so. Yeah.
So for everybody watching, the performance that Steve was talking about is included on this little box set here called Guru 30 Jar Live. It's
Okay.
3 discs or 2 disc set. You've got a entire performance from Finkenbach Festival 1998 and the 3 songs from Frankfurt, Germany 1971, Bo Diddley, Baby Cakewalk, and Oxymoron.
That's different. That's different.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not
different.
the same thing.
Not the same one?
The other
No,
one's from
mine
a
is
different.
Bremen.
Mhm.
Bremen,
Gotcha.
Germany.
Okay, never mind then. Sorry guys, but it's also for the same year. So.
Same year, a much better recording from the Bremen.
Yeah, well, it was off the radio, right? It was for the radio.
Yeah, it's a Radio Bremen recording.
Yes, it
It's
was.
you know, I mean, it's not tremendously high fidelity because they're playing unbelievably loud, you know, and probably blowing up the microphones, but it's pretty good. You know, it's pretty sounds like the albums, except they're crazier.
Yeah, you know,
And
back in
more longer.
the day when I was doing tape trading and stuff, I mean, there was all kinds of like radio broadcasts and audience tapes of all of these bands that we're talking about. It's kind of
Well,
crazy.
and you know that I mean that's what Long Hair and Garden of Delights spent a lot of time doing a good job of it too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I messed up that.
Cool. All right, Ken.
So for my 5th, and the first 3 are simple for me. Number 4 and 5 are tough. So number 5, I went with, I can never get this, Dizyon, Electric Silence. So Dizyon, well, just to flex a little bit, this is their 2nd album, Time Machine,
Mhm.
and Electric Silence was their 3rd album. And I think for me, it was their best. They were a trio of Reinhard Kowalski, he was bass player, Eddie Marin was the guitarist, and Peter Giger was the percussionist. They started out with a different lineup. They had a sax player and a vocalist, and it was like a pretty good like progressive jazz rock thing. But then with Time Machine, they went down to that trio format, and then that's when they really started moving into a krautrock direction, but also with a strong jazz rock influence. For Electric Silence, they went like what I call like full-blown krautrock. Very strong Indian and Turkish influences. Eddie Marin introduced sitar, zaz, something called a stringed instrument called the baglama, the tambura. He also plays mellotron. Quarty plays all different kinds of acoustic and electric basses. And Peter Giger is this world-class percussionist who's since made solo albums, all percussion albums. And it's very creative. But it's got this really strong Middle Eastern influence. So it's kind of like a little bit like Popol Vuh. You get some Shakti in there.
I almost picked a Zine, and you know, it's sort of like I was thinking about it. They're kind of like the Krautrock Mahavishnu, but more Krautrock than Mahavishnu.
Well,
Yeah,
more Krautrock, yep. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was going to say the same thing. Mhm.
I think
Great
Time
record,
Machine
great
may be a little more Mahavishnu. You know, the one
That's
before.
that's the one I listened to today. So
Yeah,
you're right.
that one, and it's fantastic. I mean, yeah, Time Machine. It's got. It's a shame if you listen to it on Spotify, the 18-minute track is blocked out. You can't hear it.
Yeah.
You can only hear the first side. But fantastic, and I think they're still in print. I think.
Long Hair put them out on vinyl.
Yeah, and they were on CD for a long time. So
Yes, they were on CD.
these were originally released on Bellafon in Germany. You could find them, and then I think they got released on Long Hair Music as well on CD. So some way, shape, or form, you could find these albums. Yeah, I mean, it's that world music influence that comes through with a lot of these bands we're going to talk about tonight. They start pulling from all different directions, and yeah, to me, there's a lot of similarity at the acoustic parts, I'm reminded a little bit of like Shakti. So,
Yes.
and then you'll hear some Embryo and as I said, some of the Popol Vuh stuff, or even the group Between. So, but Eddie Marin, he's a great guitar player. I mean, he plays just killer stuff. So, Dizzy Electric Silence. This is my number 5.
Nice.
And we'll be sure, if everybody watching, we'll be sure to list our picks down in the comments below so you guys can go investigate this stuff. So, all right. So my number 5 is a debut album from this band, 1972. The album is called Malesh. The band is called Agitation Free.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Really good stuff.
Kick-ass,
Ken
man.
mentioned like Middle Eastern themes in his last pick. You get a lot of them on here, and especially with this band. The rhythms, the motifs, got that nice little Middle Eastern feel. It's definitely different sounding, a little fusion-y in spots, a little spacey in others. Lots of good jams on here. There's great guitar and keyboard work throughout this. You Play For Us Today is a terrific, terrific song. Sahara City is another one, the title track. All killer. I'll list the guys here. Hopefully I don't butcher these names too much. Lutz Ulbrich on guitar and keys, George Schwenke on guitars, Burghard Rausch, drums, percussion, Michael Honig on synths, keyboards, and Michael Gunther on bass. So they not a big discography, only had a couple albums out when they first, in their first wave. They've come back and reunited later on, but this is a great live album too from this time.
Yep.
The other thing is that before they made their first record, which you're holding, the Goethe Institute, for somehow they ended up doing a tour of Egypt, and that's what you hear. That guy like, what will we play for you today? That's the voice of one of the.
I'm gonna throw out. I'm gonna bail on going 1 through 5 because that was my number 1. So I love the album. I mean, it
really is a fantastic album.
I mean, I went crazy a few years ago and I bought an original copy.
Oh yeah.
This cost me a small fortune. So I get to flex and hold it up a little bit. But yeah, interesting. Michael Honig was in Tangerine Dream briefly.
Yes.
So he replaced Peter Baumann for a tour of, I think, Australia or something like that. And it's that strong Middle Eastern feel, and but full on electric.
And also, quite honestly, very Middle Eastern feel and exotic influences. But the 2 guitar thing is very Grateful Dead influenced. Like the Dead at their most cosmic.
Yep.
It's a magnificent album.
Yeah.
It really is. So
cool. All right.
And it's available. It's in print. You could.
Yeah. I got these not too long ago. So
Yeah.
MIG. Right? MIG.
Yeah, made in Germany. Yep.
Chuck.
Come on, wake up, Chuck.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit off-centered with this one, with this pick. This pick is quite famous for being the album, that broke them in here in the States, and they were very big, strangely and oddly, in the South during the early 70s when this album came out. And it's when they started to distance themselves from their peers like Neu!, Cluster. And they started becoming a bit more electronic without sounding as trance-like like Tangerine Dream. I'm talking about Kraftwerk's Autobahn. You still although you hear the trappings of electronic, what they would influence as they went further onward, because they became a bit more dance oriented. But this is the album over here where I feel that they got everything correctly. Autobahn, the title track, got a lot of airplay oddly over here in New York City. I wouldn't even want to pronounce anything on here, and so, but this is the album that I feel that they finally got everything correct on here. So this is my pick for my number 4, Kraftwerk's Autobahn. If I'm not mistaken, the album is from 1973 or 72. I gotta look it up, and so should have did that before I got on here. But that's my number 4, Kraftwerk, Autobahn.
The fun off the Autobahn.
Altamont.
Well, that's another, but that's not, for many people, that's like that's, a very important aspect of krautrock. What they call, Steve, what do they call it, like motoric?
Motoric.
Yeah. So it's just sort of very rhythmic, and it's just a different aspect.
Yeah. So I'm going to tie something Ken said with Pete's record, in that, yes, the Germans, when you were trading tapes, had lots of live things. And for mine, this is an agitation-free record. It's them live. I don't, whatever. But anyway, it was released legitimately on Garden of Delights. It's the band around the time of their third album, which was a live album that only came out in France originally. But I like that. And the third one's called Last, and it's great. But I like this a little better, and it's a little longer, and it's a little more stretched out. And it's a very fun, everything that Pete said about Malish, I think you could say about this. It might even be the same band. I know at one point they had to replace one of the guitar players because of drugs. But other than that, the band was the same. What a shock. Yeah, right? It's like, it's like Motorhead when he was thrown out of Hawkwind. He was really fucking angry. It's just like, how can you throw me out of this band for drugs? How dare you? Anyway.
Cool. All right, Ken.
All right. Like I said, I'm blowing up my list here. So I'm gonna, just for the hell of it, I'm going with an album that I actually released. So we're talking about Yatha Sidra, a meditation mass.
Oh, nice.
Let's see, we can open it up. We had the die cut cover.
Yeah.
Then it got reissued this way. I can never get this damn camera. Everybody always comments. I know. There we go. I'll figure it out. One day by my 100th show, I'll figure it out. So this is kind of like the mellower side of krautrock. The album was released on Brain Records in 1974, and Brain was really kind of an important figure in terms of German progressive music, and to some degree krautrock as well. I mean, it was, the label was owned by Philips, and it was like the progressive label, and the band was led by the Fichter brothers, Rolf and Klaus. Rolf played Moog synthesizer, Indian flute. He played piano, guitar, and vibes. Klaus was the drummer. The band had a bass player, Matthias Nicolai. He also played some 12-string guitar, and Peter Elbrock played flute. The album is broken up into 4 parts, 2 of which are very, very long. When we reissued the CD, we decided to reunite the 2 sides of the album into one continuous piece of music, so the whole thing flows. For the most part, it's kind of laid back, very, flute-driven music. It has some droning sitar and piano, and it just kind of takes you on this musical journey. It's very quiet, but it has this nice rhythmic pattern to it. It's very spacey, overtones of Indian music. And it kind of, the way I describe it is kind of like this gentle float down a river until you hit part 3, and then Ralph breaks out the electric guitar, and Klaus, kicks it into overdrive. And then that's over, the craziness is over, and then it just kind of reverts back to this like spaced out bliss. All this album and any of these others, man, if you get high, it really heightens the experience, I have to say. But I had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun reissuing this album. It's one of the rarest, if not the rarest album from the Brain catalog. And the 2 brothers, they were
I was hoping you were going to tell that story.
They were the nicest guys. They were crazy. They were like, I think they were like living in the Black Forest or something like that. And I would call, and I'd be like, Ralph, Ken is on the phone. Get over here, And I'd be talking to them, and they were just super guys. And then after Yatha Sidra broke up, they put together another band called Dream World, and Dream World were kind of good. Dream World were actually kind of like an Eloy clone. They were much more in that direction, more electric, a little heavier, space rock, and you can find them for whatever reason. Those Dream World albums, I think they got reissued. They don't go for much money. You could track those down, but you could probably track down my CD. Yeah, Yathasidra, Meditation Mass, one of the great German Krautrock, prog rock albums. That's my number 4.
Plus, Ken, with that record, I think that was the first one, you cracked into the Brain Vault.
That's true.
It didn't go very far, but I mean, it was very interesting at the time.
So actually, this is kind of an interesting story. If you guys if you have a moment. So what happened was, back when I was heavily involved in doing reissues, I wanted to do the Achim Reichel catalog. And Achim Reichel, who's an important figure in the Krautrock scene and the German music scene in general, his production company was called Guerrilla Music. And Achim was originally in a band called the Rattles with Frank Dostal. They were basically like the German Beatles, and they were very, very popular in Germany. And then, so Achim Reichel, when he started a solo career, he was a big deal out of the gate. And so I reached out to try and do the Achim Reichel albums. And Frank Dostal had a publishing company called Guerrilla Music. He ran it. And I was in touch with Frank, and Frank was a little bit of a mentor for me when I was doing this stuff. He told me, get into publishing, and I didn't listen to him. That was the mistake. He said, that's where the money is, in publishing. And I was stupid. I didn't understand it at the time. So anyway, Achim's catalog was, they were working on doing some major deal. It was partly owned by Polygram. Then it was Polygram. Now it's Universal, called Universal, and Guerrilla Music. So they wouldn't do that, but I asked them about Yathasidra, and we did the deal for Yathasidra, and it was kind of interesting because, according to the deal between Guerrilla and Polygram, if Guerrilla came to Polygram with a deal, Polygram couldn't say no. So I got my foot in the door with Polygram, and that's what led me to doing the Schickefiers Frohling reissue. So once I did Yathasidra, I said to those people, hey, what about Schickefiers Frohling? And they're like, what? What's that? Who? What's that? And we worked out the deal to do the 3 Schickefiers Frohling albums. And they really didn't know what they had. I mean, they contacted me and said, can you give us the catalog numbers so we could find the stuff in the vault? And they dug everything up, and we did everything from the original master tapes. Yathasidra was done from the master tapes. Now, Universal won't do that. Universal will not let out master tapes. Sony as well. If you want to license something from Universal, they'll give you a digital file cut at $24,192. But back then,
there was no digital file.
There were no digital files. Yeah, there really weren't. So they sent us the masters, and I had it mastered with Bob Katz in Manhattan. So we did the Yathasidra. It was very successful, and then we did the SFF stuff. But it was kind of interesting. I was stupid because I had my foot. Not only did I have my foot in the door, I kicked the door wide open, and I should have done more Brain titles, and I didn't, because at the time I didn't think there was a market, and I was stupid because there was a huge market, but that's what it was.
I also think that they sort of started to get the idea that there was a market, because at the time, I mean, Ken and I have been friends for a long time, and he hooked me up because I said, I want to do the Noy records. I want to do and I was not able to get anywhere. Now the Noy catalog is a very, that's a very weird.
That's holy ground.
It's not even a question of holy ground. It's like you had those 2 guys who sort of like didn't agree, and did they really own it and whatever. But I do think that I think you may have found it hard, even if you would decide to go on, you might have found it harder. I think they were getting the idea that there was value in the catalog. But you got two great projects out of it.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be very proud of yourself.
Two's better than nothing, right?
You are.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, my number 4 is a band that I have admittedly had a really hard time getting into over the years. I've tried many, many times. And this particular live album for me is the way I like this band, with no vocals. Can live in Stuttgart, 1975. I would rather listen to this any day over this. That's just me. I know people love this and I like parts of it, but this I like a lot. This is just excellent keyboard, guitar oriented, jammy, psychedelic, proggy fusion, big long tracks, just kind of goes here, there, and everywhere. And I dig this a lot. For me, Can with vocals and all these other weird instruments just seems like just overload. And it's like they're taking the blueprint of the Mothers of Invention and maybe a couple other 60s bands and just going off into a totally new area, which is fine, but it's just not really for me. This, however, I like a lot. And this only just came out earlier this year, late last year. I listen to this. Yeah, I listen to this all the time. This for me is the Can that I can totally get into. So
it's also, the big revelation for me, because by 1975 on album, I don't think Can are very interesting anymore. But some people say, that live they were still really happening, and it's like that's a very good record.
Yeah.
But the albums that they were doing by 75 and 76, I don't think are particularly good records.
I kind of disagree, but I think the Can opener cover, that to me that was like a prog rock album. I thought that was pretty good. I didn't like Malcolm Mooney. I didn't like the vocalists. I didn't like Damo Suzuki. I know it's sacrilege. Right now, Michael Bennett's going to be watching this and he's going to be having palpitations because I said that. But, Pete, I don't disagree with you. I think you nailed it.
Take the vocals off of this or the couple albums that came after it, and I actually kind of enjoy it. I just don't like the vocals on these albums. There's a few songs where it's not too bad. Like Paper House is pretty decent, but man, like Oh Yeah, and some stuff on Hallelujah, and it's just like, shut up already. Just let these guys play. I don't know, but again, I seem to be in the minority because I know people who these early Can albums are like, really, really highly regarded, including for the vocals. And I just have a hard time getting into them because of that. But this other stuff, this live album, great, really good.
Yeah, obviously an important band.
Hugely important band.
And
their albums even got released in the USA.
Yeah. The creativity of the band was off the charts.
Yeah.
But for me personally, the vocalists really diminished the music. So.
All right, Chuck, back to you. Number 3.
All right. I'm going to pick an album that caused a big furor when I pronounced the band's name wrong. But like I said, this is my favorite album by them, but I don't think it's their best album. It's Noise debut album. Perhaps this album more than the other 4 that I have here probably might have a lot more to do with the post-punk scene. It's an album that's been highly influential to David Bowie. You have Joy Division, you have Wire, you have shades of Roxy Music in there, and so you have Brian Ferry. People that listen to this album because it was basically like a punk, which it had a lot to do with punk, but yet it was just a little bit more edgier. The song Negative Land, a band they actually took their name and they named themselves after this one song. And Hallo Gallo, starts off this album. Noise debut. This right here, fantastic album. Both members were also part of Krautrock as well, and then they just branched off. That's my number 3, Noise, their debut album.
All right, Steve.
I came very close to picking the first Noi album, Chuck.
Mhm.
So that's great. That's great. So a more left field album, the second Faust album, probably the least of all the of their original four. This is probably the one that I think gets ignored a
All
bit.
the time. Mhm.
It's, you know, their first album is unbelievably radical and unbelievably interesting, and I don't tend to play it very much because it's really shocking and great and cool, but it's not as musical. But this is just a great, crazy record. And, you know, Faust are one of these bands that, I mean, they had this weird deal with Polydor. They had this guy, Uwe Nettelbeck, who was a well-known journalist, and he was their producer. And he basically worked out a deal with Polydor where they got a house in the woods and a live-in engineer, a professional engineer, for like 2 years. And they just was like an unlimited budget, you know, and they just smoked a lot of weed and just played whenever they wanted to, and then took the tapes and hacked them up and put them together into something and whatever. It's just, you know, it's the sort of thing, it's like, it's totally crazy. And somebody, I'm sure, lost their job over doing that. But hey, it's a, you know, but they made something that was very, very different from anything that had taken place before.
You want to scare your neighbors, play them
So
Faust.
yeah, scare your neighbors. Play. So Chuck, you like So Far? That's what you
Love it. Mhm.
do. You have a favorite Faust record?
What's it? It's coming up.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oops.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. All right, you're banned.
Both of us, we're both bandits. The chemistry.
You know, that for me, like, that's one of the tributaries of krautrock that I never could get into. Here, I'll do another flex. Along with Noi, there's, like, you know, Cluster, and
That's a great record.
I know.
I didn't choose. That might have gotten chosen, except it doesn't have drums and guitars.
Yep.
To me, I lump that in with Noi, Harmonia,
Another great
Faust.
album.
It's just sort of I don't know. It's a legitimate tributary of krautrock that just doesn't appeal to me. You know, Cluster, okay, you know, but those albums don't do much for me. So I'm gonna.
But there it is on your floor.
Yeah, I actually got it as part of a collection. It's a beautiful.
And I love opening it up to show the inside of them with that incredible junky, you know, just, I mean, like, it's like every piece of, it's every spring from out of a washing machine, and every keyboard and every whatever that you can get to hit and make a noise with.
Kids, this is what you want to see when you go out shopping. You want to look for the green brain label.
Green Brain.
Green Brain, that's what you want. So this was the first pressing, and it's quite a.
No fingerprints, Ken. Careful.
No, I don't play it. So because I'm not like a huge fan. If anybody wants to make me an offer, you know, I'd consider it. So okay, so I'm gonna, as I said, I'm blowing up my list, and this was kind of, you know, and I've talked about this album so many times, so I'm not gonna go on about it too much. Agitation free. Ashra Temple. There we go. I'm not going to move. This is the first Ashra Temple album.
Superb, man.
The gatefold. I've talked about it, I think, ad nauseum. It was
Taught me about it.
Huh?
I didn't know them.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Well,
right.
yeah.
I did tell you about it. That's true. So,
No, I mean, I had inventions for electric guitar, which I liked, but I did not know the rock period.
Season of Tranquility, people. Steve's a noob. What can I tell you? So Yeah, there you go. There you go. I got my just desserts. So
I forgot about the signs. It's been a while.
yeah. That was good, wasn't it, when we did that?
Yeah.
So this is the first Ashra Temple album. It was Manuel Gotching, Hartman Enck on bass, Klaus Schultz on drums and synthesizers. It's just 2 sidelong tracks. You have Ambos and Tron Machine. Ambos, as I recall, is one where Gotching is just going absolutely ape shit on guitar. It's a total wank fest. It starts out kind of spacey and drifting, and then it just builds up after about 5 minutes or so. It catches fire, and then Gotching just totally goes off his nut. The second side is a little more synthesizer driven. It's more sedate, more emphasis on synthesizer sounds, but it picks up at the end, and Gotching is killing at the end. And as I think I mentioned, the very first time I played the album, I accidentally played it at 45 RPM. It sounds amazing at 45 RPM. Never heard guitar work like this. Unbelievable. Absolutely amazing.
Oh, man.
So just for that alone, it's worth trying to find it on vinyl. So yeah. This was I mentioned it in the Desert Island. This is I think it was top, I don't know if it was my bottom 5 or my top 5, but one of my all-time favorite albums. Love this album.
Of course, after this show, now everybody watching is going to be going on YouTube, and they're going to be playing that album, and they're going to be fiddling around with the speed. And like, now I know exactly what Ken was talking about.
I got to tell you, at 33, they're pretty damn good. So, but at 45, wow. I was like, wow, that side's really short. I was like, wow. It was like, well, I just put that on.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
It could have been my number 1, that or the Agitation Free, were kind of interchangeable for me. So I love that.
All right, my number 3 has already been mentioned, and it's a great one. And I actually had 3 from this band that I was considering, but I ultimately decided to go with Hinton from Guru Guru. I tell you, UFO is really good too. I think UFO is a little bit more savage than this one.
Yeah.
A little bit. Quick. This is slightly more refined, and I'm using that term very loosely. But like Chuck mentioned, 4 long tracks. Man, just go out and listen to the meaning of meaning. Killer, man. The guitar soloing on this is just absolutely amazing. I mean, Axe Gendrick, if you love like Hendrix's late 60s, just freak out acid rock jamming stuff, you're going to love this. 4 long tracks. Spaceship is great.
And, Axe made like literally in the late 90s, came back with the Axe Gendrick trio, and they made 2 albums. And the first one's pretty good, called Psychedelic Guitar. And the second one is terrific. And it's like it nearly reaches Guru Guru heights. Yeah, it's really a great record. And, it's like, oh my God. Why? And then he disappeared again, Yeah,
it's some great jams on here. I had a hard time choosing between like these first 2 albums and a couple that came after, which are a little jazzier, more fusion. They're all really good. And then I'm like, which one do I listen to more? And I think then this one was my choice because I really enjoy this.
See, Pete, thing with Guru, I agree. UFO and Hinton, clearly Krautrock albums. After that, the lineup changed a bit.
Yeah.
No, the third album is
Kangaroo is
it's not a lineup change. And I'm actually surprised that nobody mentioned it because I like that one as much as UFO.
No, it's great. It is great. But there was a change in the sound of the band. Yeah, Kangaroo is fantastic. I
think it's their best.
That was on Brain, correct? And yeah. And but then they became a quartet, and you had Dance of the Flames and all. Then they became, to me, Don't Call It. I think that, by the way, I think that's an underrated album. Dance of the Flames. I turned you on to Dance of the Flames. Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
So it's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, I think it. The focal point. Let's call it the first 3 albums. Can we agree? The first 3 albums are the Krautrock albums. After that, more of a jazz rock, prog rock. kind of a sound.
Thing.
I'd stop calling them at that point. I wouldn't call them a krautrock band. Others would, and then, you know.
All right, Chuck, number 2.
All right. I'm going to make Steve pretty happy with this one over here. What's it? Like I said, we did mention that Faust was coming up. It's my number 2. It's their debut album. As I mentioned before, like with a couple of albums that I mentioned here, it's not their best album, but it's my favorite album by them. And this was a band that knew how to use sound and how to make sound good. And once again, this might not be their best album. You know, this is very hard. Faust is a very hard band to listen to. You know, you have to be in the mood for a band like this. I think that Faust Tapes is their best album, perhaps maybe even Faust 4. But this album still, it's the first one that I've ever purchased, and it always seems to be the album that I love listening to. And this is my album over here. This is my number 2, Faust. Once again, self-titled. Their debut album is my number 2, Faust.
Well, and also just by dint of, I mean, especially in 1971 when that came out, you know, that was an unbelievably radical album.
Very.
I mean, just, you know, that was such a crazy, you know, I mean, with the noise, you know, it opens the first 20 or 30 seconds, you know, it's just noise and sound. And then there are these little tiny samples of I can't get no satisfaction and all you need is love. And it's like you're in a time machine, you know, or, you know, you're being pushed forward into time or something. It's a really radical statement.
Great album. That's my number 2, Faust.
All right, Steve.
So this was hard for me because I had to absolutely pick something by this band, and there's like 7 of them that are all kind of a piece and kind of all perfect to me. But I'm going to choose this one because it definitely has guitar and drums, and it has sheep on the cover. This is Popol Vuh, Lied's Tag, Lied's Nacht. And, you know, they started as an electronic band. Their first 2 albums are electronic. I believe Klaus Schulze bought Florian Frick's Moog. I think that's, yes, okay. You know, and at some point, Florian Frick, you know, he got rid of his Moog and he started basically playing piano. And there are, you know, he had some great sidemen, and for me, his greatest sideman was Daniel Fischelschur, who both played guitar and drums, obviously not at the same time, and is a really good guitar player with a really distinctive sound. And on this album, I mean, it's not a rock band per se, but some of his guitaring is very heavy. And he usually had a female vocalist, and he does here. Here he has 2 female vocalists. He has John Jung and also Renate Knapp, who Renate was the singer from Amandul 2, great singer, and in her day, one hot lady. All right, let's hear it for hot German ladies that probably had ties to the Bader Meinhof group.
Probably. I found my copy of that album in Versailles in an antique market.
Wow.
Walking back to the train station, Lauren and I ducked into this antique market, and there was all these different, you know, mall, and there were all these different vendors, and there was somebody with records, and there was a copy of Lied's Tag, Lied's Nacht. Like, you know, I must have paid $1 for it.
Bargain.
That was on,
but he, you know, but he had to go to Versailles.
That was on my honeymoon.
Wow.
His poor wife.
I made her carry back 75 albums.
Wow.
Well, all right, I carried back some of them.
And participated in more like music related stories on his honeymoon than most of us have done in our lifetimes, right?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's probably true.
She's a good-hearted lady, let me tell you.
She has the patience of a saint.
Actually, no.
You've met my wife?
I've seen her give him something.
Wow. So I've kind of lost track. So this is my number 2, right? So
Yes.
somehow I sort of feel like this is my 5th, but I'll have to rewatch this to figure out before I give you the list, because I think maybe when we were talking about agitation free or something, I don't know. Anyway,
Before that.
I don't know what it is. So all right,
This is running rampant among the channel the last couple of days. None of us can keep track of numbers.
I know. I don't know. I think I think anyway. I'm going to keep going. So my number 2. See if I can get this right. Yeah, I think I kind of got it right.
Got it right.
Yep.
All right. Cosmic Jokers, Galactic Supermarket, and I'm going to go 2A and 2B. I'm sorry. The original Cosmic Jokers. These are original copies, by the way. Cosmic Jokers. The reason why I'm including both is because they come out of the same. They came out of the same recording sessions.
They may have been recorded on the same night.
Yeah. So these were basically, these came out on the Or Records. Well, actually, the Cosmic Courier label. The label was started by a very important figure in Krautrock, Ralph Ulrich Kaiser, and he was this madman that started. He had 3 labels. He had OHR. He had Pills, and he had Cosmic Courier. So Or was the rock label, Pills was the folk label, and Cosmic Courier was the let's drop
Drug
acid.
label.
And,
That was the drug label.
that was the drug label, yeah. So basically, these 2 albums were they were from this drug-fueled jam session that Kaiser put together, and originally apparently was not intended for commercial release, but that's been disputed. So some of the guys, I think Gotching had said, no, we knew all about it, and some of the other guys, I think like Klaus Schultz said, we weren't getting paid, we didn't know that this stuff was coming out. So it was kind of like an all-star project with members of people that recorded on the Or label. So you had Klaus Schultz, you had Manuel Gotching on guitar from Ashrad Temple, Jürgen Dolis from Wallenstein, Harold Grosskopf, the drummer, and you had Manuel Gotching's girlfriend, Rosie Miller. And it's Galactic Supermarket's 2 side-long tracks, and if I'm not mistaken, Cosmic Jokers also 2 side-long tracks. And it perfectly captures the cosmic music sound. Gotching plays brilliant guitar. You've got Jürgen Dolis playing some really nice piano and mellotron, and you have Klaus Schultz handling organ and Moog, and it's very spacey.
Great jam records.
Yeah,
I came very close to picking the first one.
yeah. I mean, the purple microdot kicked in, and these guys went into the studio, and they and Kaiser, actually Dieter Dierks he went to town recording, and fantastic albums, and they've just been reissued, so you can get them on CD now, and you can get them on vinyl, and from the original master tapes.
Yeah,
probably for the very first time. It was kind of interesting that this was this incredibly important label, and the albums have been reissued over the years on different labels. I mean, we talked about the Guru albums, those first 2, they were on Or, and they've been licensed out to different labels over the years, Spalax, Cleopatra in the US. Well, I think somebody lost, over time, the master tapes were kind of lost. And then Dieter Dierks, the great producer, Scorpions and, whatever, he was, very important factor in the German music scene. Turned out he had all the master tapes.
Oh.
Had them all sitting in his archive. And so they are slowly, very slow, too slowly, in my opinion, they are reissuing the Or and Pills catalog and the Cosmic Courier. Those were the 3 labels that he had, and they're doing a beautiful job with them.
Nice.
Steve and I have both. We have the 2 Cosmic Couriers in stock, but of course you should buy it from me first. So, so that's my number 2, and I'll go find something else to go for my number 1. So
cool. I need to check those out.
They're great. They really are great.
All right, my number two, again, a band that I had a hard time choosing exactly which one to represent here because I was down to two of them specifically, but I decided to go with 1971's Tanz der Lemming from Amandul
Nice.
2.
Great record.
Yep. Great record. The
What's
best.
interesting is that I really like this, yet I don't like Tago Mago from Cannibal that much. And they're both really weird albums. I can't really put my finger on it, but this is really cool. This is originally a double album, 4 like kind of sidelong movements, right? Each really different from each other. This is a weird mix. It's part psychedelia, part classical, Middle Eastern themes, avant-garde, rock, a little bit of jazz.
West Coast. Also,
West Coast, yep.
little bit of Jefferson Airplane in there in the rock
Spirit.
Absolutely, yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's why, because there definitely is a US influence here. I hear a lot of like early Mothers of Invention on here. There's a little bit of Pink Floyd spaciness, like the really early Pink Floyd stuff. But a lot of music on here. It's weird, it's compelling, it's dramatic. There's some really good guitar work. You get all sorts of different instruments being played on here. And if you just kind of look at the inside of the CD here, you can kind of just tell the vibe of what's going on in this just by.
Now I don't remember. Does that have on the back, Pete? Does that list the personnel?
Not on the back, but let me see. It's probably in the.
I think that this is the first one without their bongo player Schrott. But is Schrott on this one or not?
I think he's on that album.
So we got John Wayne Cyril on guitars, Chris Karner on guitars, vocals, Lothar Mead on bass, Peter Leopold on drums, K.H. Houseman on electronics. And then they don't list a bongo player, right?
All right, well then, so Schrott is on their first 2 albums, and he played bongos, and he's the guy holding the scythe on what's the album called? I can't
on Yeti.
Oh, Yeti.
Yeti. He's the guy holding the scythe, and Schrott is famous for, apparently he didn't overdose because you can't die from it, but he took so much LSD that he died. They found him with his eyes open on the floor. Yeah, they found him with his eyes open. Oh, by the way, so Pete, that with Yeti, with that insert.
Yeah.
So that used to be, you have to open that because I got my start.
It looks like an acid trip. Just take a look at that. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. Well, that's Schrott holding the. Holding the scythe. Yeah.
Both of these are really wild albums.
Those are totally crazy. That was a crazy fucking band. It really was.
Yeah.
Did they play at Prog Day?
No.
I think Michael wanted to get them.
And Thomas Ziegler's famous thing was, he said to me, this is a German man in the music business that both Ken and I know, said, "Oh, Steve, they are the stupidest of Krautrock now."
Wow. Wow.
It was like, and if Thomas is saying it, because he loved that whole thing,
it must have been
he must have been really shitty.
Yeah. He loved all those bands, and that was,
All right, our number ones. Chuck, what do you got?
My number one, which is my favorite German band of all time. It's an album. That I know you all mentioned that you weren't crazy about the vocals on the band, but Can's Future Days, in my opinion, is perhaps they're actually not in my opinion. It's my favorite album by them. I think that is probably the closest that they've gotten to their influence post like the post-punk bands like Public Image Limited, which you got to hear a lot, especially Public Image Limited, bands like Japan, they got to listen to songs on this album, and this over here you get to see just how great this band was. Future Days from 1974, Can's 4th album, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the last one to feature your favorite singer, Damon Suzuki.
It's also my favorite Ken.
It's a great album.
That record, the groove goes for miles.
Incredible. What's that? If anybody ever wants to listen to, well, the band is great in a whole, but the late Jackie
But
Lebezai,
Jackie Liebetzeit,
he was an amazing drummer.
he was a great drummer.
He was just absolutely amazing. You know, he was a groove-oriented drummer. You know, the guy he reminded me a lot of like Tony Allen from Fedakuri. That type of drummer, you know, where he was just a groove master. You know, he could create space and, you know, out of so many things in the limited time that he played. Just an amazing drummer, man. And you get to hear how amazing he was on all 4 of these tracks and throughout Can's career and in his lifetime. That's my number 1, my all-time favorite band, and perhaps my favorite Krautrock album.
Are they your favorite, Chuck? Are they your favorite band?
Yes, they're my favorite Krautrock band.
Okay.
Cool.
Can.
All right, Steve.
Okay, so actually, the others were not in order, but this is in order. This is one of my favorite records of all time. This ties a lot of things. It's one of my favorite records of all time. It's, I guess, my favorite record out of the Krautrock scene. Luckily, it has drums and guitars, so I can feature it. And I first heard this record really, 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 really stoned.
Nice.
And I loved it. And ever since then, I bought it the next day. And ever since then, I've been trying to recapture the feeling. I'm not sure I've ever done it, but I still love it. Harmonia Deluxe. And this is just a wonderful album of spacey stuff. It is interesting. It's the guitar player from Noi, Michael Rother, and it's the 2 guys from Cluster. And they got together and they moved. They had Michael Rother moved to their house like way in the forest, and apparently they starved a lot. Were very broke. But the sound that they make, really, it's nothing like Noi, and it's nothing like Cluster.
Nope.
It's just Harmonia.
Yep.
And they made 2 fabulous records. And there's been a lot of interest in them since, you know, in the last 20 or 25 years, 3 posthumous records have come out. One with Eno, and 2 live and outtakes records. And they're all of reasonably good quality to fabulous. So, but yeah, that's, you know, it's like, I got to find what weed it was, and I got to figure it out.
Sure, it was weed.
I'd like to hope
Maybe that's the question, right?
Maybe that is the key.
That's the key.
That's the key. Yeah, I think you got a good point, Jack.
All right, Ken, what do you got?
All right, so this is actually like my number 5. This was actually going to be like my number 5, and then it got pushed into the honorable mentions, and I've lost track. So even though it's my number 1, it's not really my number 1, but it's a great album. So I don't think you guys know this album, but maybe you do.
Yeah.
Iblis, Supernova.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know this album?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So Iblis, they were one of the early krautrock bands. They put this one album out on Spiegelei in 1972. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of more from like the jazz rock side of the krautrock spectrum. They're associated with Kraftwerk because 2 of the guys were heavily involved in Kraftwerk. The 2 percussionists, Basil Hamodi, he was in Organization, which was the pre-Kraftwerk band, and Andreas Holman played on the first Kraftwerk album. So the album's just 4 tracks, very percussive oriented. It opens up with this pounding percussion, then the guitars jump in and things just start ripping. It's, as I said, very percussive heavy. The sax, this flute, this guitar all the way through that kind of balance everything out. They get into like a Latin groove. There's some ethnic vibes. And there's this sort of looseness, which I think kind of is kind of key to a lot of these krautrock albums. And in some ways, I found them to be similar to early Embryo with maybe some touches of like Weather Report around the edge.
They remind me of Passport.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
yeah,
It's
I
like
mean, but
very
early Passport.
that's a very early Passport.
But Passport, I think, is more composed than this.
Mhm.
You know, a little bit more so. I'm just so proud that I figured out how to.
Nice.
But anyway, as I said, like
Taking long enough.
originally this was like my number 5, and then it got pushed out, and I've lost track. So
It's
there it
as
is.
good as any, Ken.
Yeah, I got a lot of honorable mentions here that I can hold up.
But your true number 1 was Agitation Free, correct?
Yeah, it really was. And the Agitation Free, or the Ashra. I mean, those 2 albums, that and the Ashra Temple, those are the 2 that are like, those are carved in stone for me. Those are, when I sell the collection, those are going to be some of among the last to go.
There you go.
And by the way, I'm not selling the collection, so don't come.
You're not taking it with you?
I'm taking it with me.
I think
Some people say you can't take it with me. You can't take it with you. I'm taking it with me.
I figured you'd at least.
I'm digging.
I figured you'd at least be taking Ashra Temple with you.
I told Lauren originally. I said,
You want a coffin? No, you want the sides of your coffin to be it's going to open up with the thing in the middle.
Yeah, just like that, just like that.
And they'll slide you in.
Originally I told Lauren, I want to be cremated, and then what you do is you walk up and down the aisles of the Princeton Record Exchange and you just drop my ashes. But I have now I'm thinking I want a big mausoleum, like carved out of like marble or granite, and we'll store the albums in there. And I'll take my sound system and I'll set it up in there, and we'll just have it like regular rotation. Maybe we'll hire a DJ. Who knows? Y'all can come
admission, 24-hour, 24/7.
That would be up to Lauren. That'd be up to Lauren, and y'all could come visit me. And,
Never be lonely again.
I mean, I'll be dead. I won't care. So do we want? But just saying.
Well, speaking of Ashra Temple, my number 1 is the self-titled debut from 1971.
Beautiful.
Amazing album.
It really is, man.
There's no denying it.
2 sidelong tracks. First one is, I love the creepy soundscapes over which Manuel just kind of goes berserk. Soloing, man, it's savage. It's great. The second song is really cool too. It's kind of like haunting and space rocky, but then with a really nice finish. Great, awesome mood music. And the trio, but they got a pretty full sound, and it's got this jamminess, which I really like. And if you kind of look at a few of my picks, that's kind of what I like about this whole Krautrock thing. So and a really cool cover too.
Yep.
There you go. All right. Any honorables, Chuck? We'll start back with you.
Popol Vuh, I don't have any of them on me right now, but Popol Vuh, you can go with their first 3 or 4 albums. What's a very cosmic, trance-like music. Embryo, which was already mentioned. What's that? I'm trying to think of anybody else's. Or Grobschnitt, although Grobschnitt, like I said, is a bit more symphonic. More symphonic.
Chuck, if you would have said the first Grobschnitt album, I'd give you a pass.
Yes, but they were a bit more symphonic. They were like very much.
Very composed. They were composed. That stuff. Those were, they were a jam band live, but those albums were very composed.
Yep. All right, so those are my picks there.
Cool, Steve.
Got a ton. This is some of what I was looking at. This is a Ernest Schmidt live 69 to 71. That's on Garden of Delights. It's really great.
I have that.
It's a trio. What I like about them the most is you read the story inside, and basically they played all the time, and they were like pretty popular, and people were interested in them, but they were so stoned that they never actually did anything. And that kind of, in a way, that's kind of like, that's
I know people like that.
Yeah, we both do, Ken. But I kind of like that because that kind of sums up the ethos of certain aspects of the Krautrock. The second Ex Magma, this is both on one CD, but the second one where they're all wearing stilts is a great record.
Pete, it's not Magma. Don't be afraid.
Embryo Opal, great record. Almost picked this one, but whatever. Ralph and Florian, because he is Ralph and he is Florian. As I said, Ken, this was one of the ones.
Yep.
Amandul to Fallis Day. I almost went with Ton Sterling, but Fallis Day is so ridiculous, and it has the vocals, which of course probably makes Pete's brain fall out. But more importantly, this album has Schrott. Anyway, another one from Embryo. There were 2 albums made from the same sessions, a rock session and Steig Aus.
Yes.
I kind of like Steig Aus. They're really jazz rock records, but I think they fit. I grabbed this, so this is a real You Weissaken, great record. Eilif, which is not really also jazz rock, probably isn't.
Eilif, yeah, that's more than jazz rock.
Eilif, yeah, probably more jazz rock. Really good band though. The keyboard player, Rainier Bruninghaus, ended up in Eberhard Weber's group.
Yeah, he recorded for ECM.
And made a couple solo albums. Noi. Okay. Actually, it's interesting, Chuck. My favorite, the second Noi album, if you take if you take side 1 and the single and take all the stuff that they just used as padding because they hated each other, but they had to turn it in, that's the best one. But but it has this kind of, it's the world's greatest 21-minute album. Anyway, I didn't pick it. Faust 4, that was very hard for me. I probably only picked so far because I figured if anybody's going to pick one, it's going to be Faust so far, and also very close for me. Whatever. Anyway, those are all honorable mentions, and there's so many more. And that's without me even pulling out my Tangerine Dream and Klaus Schultz and Manuel Gottsching and blah blah and all those other spaces.
Steve didn't even mention any of the good ones that I'm going to mention. We all kind of glossed over this. Embryo made 2 great albums. I'm a little embarrassed. This one is Steig Aus, the reissue of Steig Aus. And this one is Rock Session.
You were doing so well, Ken. What happened?
I know. I thought I had it figured out, but I didn't. I screwed up. So, what am I hearing? What was that?
That was my Amazon. It just went off.
So what was interesting about this is that you have Mal Waldron playing on these albums, the great jazz pianist. And what had happened was the band was signed to United Artists, and United Artists didn't want to release the album, and they said you can go do what you want, and they went and they got released on Brain.
So, I think that only those records got released on Brain.
Only these released on Brain, and then they kind of went back to United Artists.
Right.
So and then Charlie Mariano joined right after these. Well, actually, that's not true. Mal Waldron was in the band. Charlie Mariano was in the band, and just Mal Waldron, I believe, is on these.
Yes.
They got released on Brain, but the band's activities kept going on with United Artists and with those guys. Okay, more stuff. This didn't make my top 5 only because I'm embarrassed that it has this awful sound sticker and isn't, Gila, the first album from Gila. Originally, the band was called Gila Fuck. And the name of this album, it's often called Free Electric Sound. And that's where I stole the name for my Fusion label.
Ah.
And their second album called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. And they were, I think, Steve, didn't they share some of the guys? Yeah, Connie Vita's on this.
Connie Vita, who was Veit, who was in Popol Vuh, and the second, and Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee really sounds like a Popol Vuh record.
Yeah, and
whereas the first record's kind of very much a rock record.
Florian Frick is on this. Yes. Lots of mellotron, great guitar work, organ. Gila was a great band, and there's a great live recording of Gila that came out also from, I don't know if it was Radio
Garden
Bremen.
of Delights. That was
Yeah.
that almost
That-
again. That was another one. It's sort of like the Lost Electric record.
Yep.
Mhm.
Another band that I thought was pretty great, Collective, on Brain.
Kinda
They were
kinky.
probably a little bit more towards the jazz rock side,
Mhm.
but I think that they kind of classify. And Long Hair Music has done a lot of archival Collective releases. They're very good, and they've reissued that. Here's one that's sort of on the cusp. I'm not sure. I'm going to hold it up because I like the album cover. Thirsty Moon, the very first Thirsty Moon album. Probably closer. This is really closer to like the first, well, Eloy Floating and Inside. You know, but it's got this killer side-long track, 21-minute track called Yellow Sunshine. But it's maybe it doesn't really classify, but I don't care. I'm holding it up. I don't give a shit.
It's the end of the show, Ken. Do what you want.
Yeah, I'm taking over, and the first Tangerine Dream album with this is an Ore pressing. It got reissued on Virgin, and very, very different from the other Tangerine Dream albums. This was Edgar Froese, Klaus Schultz is where Klaus Schultz started, and Connie Schnitzler. So it was, guitar, and Froese was playing organ. Schultz was on drums. Connie Schnitzler was playing cello, all kinds of other shit. This album is totally whacked out.
Yep.
And, I listened to some of it today. I hadn't listened to it in years. It's funny how over the years, your ears change, your tastes change. And to me, what was unlistenable 20 years ago, I'm like, hey, this is pretty good. That's what happens. That's, your taste evolve. Popol Vuh, the first one, Affenstund.
Yep.
Which is basically Florian Frick on synthesizer and you have and drums. They were for a period of time very important, and then they got into soundtracks. And the last flex that I'm going to hold up, which I think is an interesting album. This is a Cosmic Courier album, Tarot by Walter Wegmuller. This was kind of like it was very similar to the Cosmic Jokers albums. They were basically like an all-star project, guys that they were pulled from the different or bands. Probably the rarest, most desirable album came with tarot cards.
Wow.
See, you're supposed to cut up. See, Pete, you got to get me on the collector's show, and I can flex with all this shit. I got all this stupid shit. It comes with, and it came with these. Yeah, it came with all these cards. Yeah. So, yeah, it was. It was Jerry Berkers, Jürgen Dolis, Hartmann Enck, who was from Asherah Temple, Manuel Gottsching, Harold Groskopf, Klaus Schultz. Who else? Other guys. Walter Wegmuller, Walter Westrup. So anyway, that's what I got, and there's a load more. I mean, I have tons of this stuff. I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. So I'm ready for parts 2 and 3.
All right. Well, most of mine have already been mentioned, my honorables, but I did want to give a shout out to Join In from Asherah Temple, their second album. Also pretty damn fine. Not quite as good as the debut, but it's really, really, really enjoyable.
Pete, can I interject for 1 second on that? That's actually their third. So Schwingungen was the second. And then
Did I
Schultz,
get him out of?
No. But Schwingungen was the second with a totally different lineup. And I don't think that's not a personal favorite. But I think you're right. I think Join In is a great album. It's just that it's
a very good record.
Just their third album. But anyway, I'm sorry. Sorry to interject.
Thank you for that. That's cool. UFO by Guru. And then Amandul 2, Yeti are my 3 honorable mentions. Also Alpha Centauri by Tangerine Dream. That's also kind of like after that really weird first album, that's kind of like the bridge album to what came afterwards. But
well, Sight is still basically almost a krautrock album. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. There's a lot of acoustic elements to Zeit. So yeah, that's they were an interesting band, Tangerine Dream. You know, to see how they changed, how they evolved. Even Klaus Schulze, if you listen to those early Klaus Schulze albums, the first couple, Earlicht and Cyborg. I mean, maybe they're Krautrock. I don't know.
Yeah, you know the funny thing is, I've been talking a lot about. I mean, I like Klaus Schulze, and the thing that's really interesting to me about Klaus, because of course I've been thinking about him because he just died, was that, you know, Ehrlich and Cyborg are pretty okay records, you know, but they're I don't think they're great records, and it's almost like the moment I don't remember what the third album is, but it's like it's the first one where he has a synthesizer instead of and even though he's only got one synth, or maybe he's got two kind of simple ones, he doesn't have the big bank. It's like suddenly it's like he was born to do that, because it's like he sounds like Klaus, all of it, you know, bang. He doesn't necessarily sound as good as he got, but it's like, oh, that's Klaus Schulze. Whereas I don't know if I would have known that from hearing
those first two albums are kind of like drone albums, you know.
Yes, they're kind of like drone albums.
And they're, you know, and it's heavy, it's organ. And the first time it's organ and, you know, like an orchestra or strings or what have you.
Right.
But yeah, I forget what was it Black Dance? I forget which.
Yeah, I think it is Black Dance. But it's like, and it's like, it's like, wow, it's him. There it is. That's the sound.
Yeah, he got Florian Frick's Moog and plugged in.
But
he obviously figured it out right away. I mean, you know, he figured it out right away, because it's like those records aren't very far apart in time.
Yeah.
Cool. So there you have it, everybody. Our favorite 5 Krautrock albums. In the comments below, please list your favorites. And if you're not all that knowledgeable about Krautrock, well, we've given you lots of examples for you to go out and sample and check out. And then once you've done that, come back, let us know in the comments below what you think of some of these cool albums. And Ken is also going to be auctioning off that gorgeous looking Magma belt buckle. So please go over to lasercd.com and send Ken a message. And
no reasonable offer refused.
There you go. So please, I do want to recommend everybody, please go check out both wonderful online stores from both of these gentlemen. We got Wayside Music, Steve Feigenbaum's wonderful online store, also home to Cuneiform Records, a lot of great releases over the years from Steve and company. And then, of course, the Laser's Edge, lasercd.com, so which Ken runs. So lots of great prog and fusion and jazz and avant-garde music and prog metal that you can go and sample and check out and purchase. And so feel free to go do that. And Chuck and I and Ken and Steve occasionally will be back on subsequent Tuesday nights here on In the Prog Seat on the channel. So thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot, Pete. This was really great. Sorry.
Yes, look forward to having you back. I know I'll give you advance notice, Steve. Steve has a hard time with Tuesdays, but we gave him plenty of advance notice for tonight, so he can make that carve out that hour and a half in the schedule.
He napped all day. The old man's gotta get his beauty sleep, you know.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. Everybody needs it. So thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. For Chuck Alvarez, Steve Feigenbaum, and Ken Golden, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching this special episode on Krautrock. See you next week here on In the Prog Seat. Take care. Bye-bye.